Why is this, if there's a bill to exclude the paramilitary agencies, the police, the various arms of the military, including the customs, the social security defense, and others, out of this arrangement? Why is that much of a concern for those of you who are pension operators and perhaps PENCOM, the regulator itself?
Well, I think that the first thing to speak about is that in 2011, the armed forces were excluded from the contributory pension scheme for reasons of security considerations of their data being in the hands of the public. And that was the reason why they were excluded at that time, the primary reason that was put forward. But if you look at the news in the recent time, you'll find out there have been protests by the members of the armed forces on the streets, speaking of a backlog in their pensions, and they want to have their pension system revisited. I think that the exclusion of the military was premature, but that's not in the realm of today's discussion. I think what is in the realm of today's discussion is not to make the same mistakes we made in the past. In 2015, the police also requested, because of the treatment of the military and security forces, to be excluded similarly from the contributory pension scheme. An arrangement was reached such that the police remain in the contributory pension scheme and were given a special arrangement by way of being given a license to run their own pension fund administrator. I think the police are happier for that today because their pensions get paid, and you don't see policemen on the streets complaining about their pension not being paid. Now, we are going again into this discussion of exclusion for the same reasons that were put forward for the military. The simple fact is that governments cannot fund payments of pensions 100% for civil servants. That's why you're having the pressure on the side of the military. It's a concern for us on the pension side because, you see, we begin to see fragmentation of a scheme that has been fraud-proof, has accumulated such a decent amount in savings, and it's not going to be beneficial for the people who this is being put forward for. There are also stories about the benefit payment rate, but the benefit payment rate is dependent on what you have accumulated in your accounts. You know, so that conversation can be had, and it can be had within the ambit of the PRA 2014. So that is the major consideration. Don't fragment the pension scheme, which has been one of the biggest achievements in public sector policy in this country. We have a good platform to have pension funds work for the Nigerian economy. 70% of the pension funds are invested in federal government securities. That money is used to fund government. If you pull these people out, you're going to dislocate the financial system. These are considerations that we must think about. It's not for the pension system alone. It's not for us who manage the pension fund who are managers of the pension funds, but it is for the entire country. I think that the bill was not thought out carefully, and in my own view, it is not altruistic.
Finally, in terms of where we go from here, of course, there was a bit of a review of the PENCOM Act in 2014. Do you think we need to amend that act or some of the regulations around the market regarding these paramilitary agencies to give everybody comfort moving forward? Do you think that is what the National Assembly should do, or do you think the executive can step in here?
I am not in government. I'm not in government, so it's difficult to say whether the executive should step in or the National Assembly should review the law. I think what is critical is that there needs to be some rigor in the process of how we review bills or laws that have been enacted. If you read the Pension Reform Act, there are so many provisions that allow for review in different directions for employees if they feel that they want to enhance what is accumulated in their pension accounts. The law does not need to be reviewed any further, and I think that there needs to be some kind of the law needs to work for a certain period of time before you start thinking of making significant changes. That's what happened between 2004 and 2014. The executive would do well to pay attention to what is happening on the National Assembly, because what is being proposed is going to put a huge financial burden on the federal government's finances, where we are struggling, and we hear that the government is crowding out the private sector and borrowing on the market. The government doesn't just wake up in the morning and say they want to crowd out the private sector. The government needs money, and that's why they're coming to the market to borrow. If you now put a further burden on them, they're going to keep on borrowing. And you see that the policy of government is to step back from expensive financing. How do you do that if you increase the burden on the government by funding a large portion of the public sector 100% on government budgets?
Lunge Egwarekede, we thank you for your time today. Do have a great weekend. The president of the Pension Operators Association of Nigeria.